Welcome back to another video. My name is Derek, and today we're going to be taking a look at this iPhone 14 Pro. It's got an issue where when connecting to Bluetooth devices, every once in a while it starts to glitch. It gets all choppy with the audio, sounds something like this. So today I'm going to walk you through my process of diagnosing and fixing it. Let's get started. There are a couple different possibilities when it comes to this type of issue. Most likely, the cause is what I call a sandwich board crack, where due to a hard drop or a bend or something like that, the layer that connects the top board to the bottom board, those solder joints themselves crack. Now we see a lot of issues with searching of service, no Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, those type of issues, but also we see intermittent Bluetooth issues because of small minor defects within the solder joints between the top and bottom boards. Now, one of the reasons I'm so confident in this being the issue is because I performed a test to work with the phone inside of the fridge. Now, that might sound really weird, but what it does is it lowers the temperature, allowing the CPU to not get so warm. And what happens is as the board does not get up to temperature and does not get as warm as it normally would, those joints have no movement, and therefore they don't lose continuity and everything continues to work. But as soon as the phone comes out into room temperature or gets warmed in the sun, all of a sudden the issues come back, telling me that the thermal energy that radiates through the motherboard eventually causes a warp that is significant enough to cause a glitch, but is almost always something that's easily fixed by a simple process called a reflow. So let me show you how I do that. First thing we need to do is turn off the phone. We'll take out the panel of screws and we'll slide the phone into our TBK screen separator. We'll line everything up, turn it on. We'll let that warm up for a little bit. And now let's carefully lift the screen. And what I like to do is take some isopropyl alcohol and go on the corners. We'll lift some more, and you can see the screens are already coming up. Now that's up high enough that we can turn it off. Click the little button here to release the screen. Pull that back and clamp it and remove it from the machine. And then we'll pop the screen off. And the phone inside looks immaculate. All right, there's 8 screws that hold down the bracket. And once it's off, we can disconnect the battery, the display, and the proximity sensor. Now I'm going to take a second to remove the battery, the cameras, everything to get the motherboard out because of the 5G antenna that comes down the side. But we're going to take the motherboard out and I'll show you the next step. Now for this next process, we are going to be using a board heater. This is a platform that gets the board up to temperature to desolder it. But we need to do some prep on the motherboard real quick. That's going to involve pulling all of the connector pads, putting some isopropyl alcohol on them helps loosen the adhesive. So we'll pull these off, and we'll also want to take off this little plastic piece that goes where the SIM card tray reader would normally be. And then on the back we'll pull off the graphite sticker as well, because this will just melt, shrivel, and not help us with the heat distribution if we leave it on. Now what I like to do is take a little bit of flux and go around the border and put a teeny bit of flux onto that sandwich joint around the perimeter. And the reason I like to do that is to help prevent any oxidation as we're heating up the solder. Now I'm just going to put these little arms on top of the motherboard to help kind of give it some compression. Go ahead and turn it on. I've got it set to 190. Anything really above 220 is just too much for this type of board. 180 is kind of the bare minimum to get movement. 190 I found is kind of the sweet spot. Sometimes I go up to 200 or 210, but I never go up to 220. And I don't want to leave this on there for too long because over time, if you leave it on even at that temperature, the other solder that isn't designed to melt during this process will actually melt, and you'll have issues with the CPU, with the NAND. So we really don't want to leave this on here too long. We want to leave it on here just long enough to get it up to temperature so we get movement in the top board, and then we turn it off and let it cool down. And we don't let the board stay on here when cooling down. We lift the board off as well. We're not letting the board stay on here too long. Once we get up to temperature at 190, I'm going to set a timer for 1 minute and 30. That's all I'm going to do. Leave it for 90 seconds and we're done. Now, if you want to apply additional heat from above, you can. Once this gets up to temperature, you can come in with the rework station, but don't go above like 380 Celsius and keep a moderate to low airflow and keep the movement constant as you go around the perimeter. Never focus it on one spot. Then you'll want to do that for maybe 30 seconds. Instead of waiting the whole 90 seconds with just the board heater, you can do this for 30 seconds with the board heater and pull it off and not have to wait the additional minute. All right, go ahead and set a timer and we'll turn it off as soon as we're there. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it off. We'll go ahead and pull off the legs gently. And now we'll carefully come in from the side and we'll lift the board and we'll let it cool down for a second. I'll take the board and we'll set it down gently onto the table and we'll let it cool down. All right, it's now cool to the touch. Now, most of the time this fixes it. Most of the time I don't have to go in and do any additional work if it presents itself in this way, where in the fridge or the freezer everything works and outside it doesn't, and it's not a flex cable, it's not nothing like that. So I'm pretty confident at this point I can put everything back together, install it inside the phone as if I'm completing the repair. And chances that I have to take it apart are very slim, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. All right, we'll turn it back on. And I'll put back the pentalobe screws. And let's check and see if we've got any issues. And let's check and see if we've got any issues with the sound now. On the phone, I'm going to go and... Now, I can hear it in the other room, but I'm going to go and check it out real quick and make sure it doesn't glitch out for the next half an hour or so. I'll just go and watch a video and see if we have any issues. All right, I've had the opportunity over the last half an hour or so to connect it up to multiple Bluetooth devices, and I've had zero issues where it starts to cut off and not transmit the sound, which means that my assumption where solder joints were broken in that sandwich layer was true. And by simply heating it up, letting the solder naturally go back together, it's fixed the issue. Now, of course, it's important that you take the proper steps to make sure that this is the issue. And one way you can do that is the cold test, like I talked about, by putting it in a fridge or even putting it in the freezer for a short amount of time. Because if it's an issue that's beyond just the joints, it's going to be present continually, regardless of temperature. If it's an issue with the flex, if it's an issue with a connector, if it's an issue with the Bluetooth module, whatever it is, it's going to have an issue that persists under that type of cold temperature. Whereas if it's an issue like this, it won't. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. If there's something that you'd like to see in a future video, let me know as well. Thanks a ton for watching. We'll see you in the next video.